Hey, and welcome to another installment of Fast Forward, a podcast from QSR Magazine, where we talk to the founders, entrepreneurs, and innovators behind some of the world's most exciting fast casual restaurant concepts. My name is Sam Oches. I'm the editor of QSR and the editorial director of Food News Media. And on today's episode, I'm really excited to bring to you a conversation that I had with the three founders and partners behind Dog Haus, Quasim Riaz, Hagop Giragossian, and Andre Vener. They are the three partners behind this Pasadena, California-based fast casual concept that serves upscale hot dogs, sausages, and burgers in a very relaxed setting, what they called a beer garden. I really like this concept a lot. I think it's got a ton of potential to grow across the country, and it already has. It's already up to more than 30 locations across the U.S., and in 2019, it has plans to double its footprint here in the States. There are a lot of things I love about this concept. I really love just the very chill ambiance and experience that they're creating with a full bar, with this very sports bar type menu and experience. But I really love, too, that it's a very chef-oriented concept. They brought on Food Network star Adam Gertler to be their worst mocker to design their menu in their early days. They also have Chef Elon Hall, who was the winner of Season 2 of Top Chef. He is now their executive chef working on the menu. And then they also bring on several James Beard-nominated chefs from around the country to do limited-time offers for them. So folks like Brooke Williamson, Alex Seidel, Bruce Kallman, these are names that have come on board with Dog Haus to do LTOs and to just give them that sort of extra oomph when it comes to the culinary and the chef orientation behind this concept. Another really exciting thing about Dog Haus is that this is a franchise. So whereas a lot of more upscale, high-quality fast casuals, I think, tend to be a little bit more reluctant giving this out to the franchise community. These guys are not afraid to hand this over to franchisees and have entrusted this with franchisees around the U.S. And I think that's paying off for them as they grow across the country and they're partnering with really high-quality franchisees. I really love this concept a lot. I really enjoyed my conversation with these guys and am really excited to share it with you. So without further ado, this is my conversation with the three partners behind Dog Haus, Quasim Riaz, Hagop Giragossian, and Andre Vener. All right, I am here with the co-founders and the partners of Dog Haus. Thanks, guys, for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so let's go around the room, and if each of you could just introduce yourself so everybody knows your voice. Quasim, start with you.
I'm Quasim. I oversee design, construction, and real estate.
This is Andre. I oversee the marketing and the finance.
This is Hagop, and I handle menu development and operations.
Excellent. So, Dog Haus, you guys have dozens of locations now. How many locations are you guys up to?
30 plus.
30 plus locations, multiple states. And you were founded in 2010. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
2010. So you've come a long way in 8 years. So let's go back to how you got here today. Let's talk a little bit about what you guys were all doing before you started Dog Haus. What was the career track? What were you guys up to in that time?
So we're all actually doing relatively similar things. So Quasim and I are college buddies. When we graduated college, we got into his family business, which was powder coating, which then turned into opening our first restaurant back in 2005. Right before then, we had done this little stint where we had a gourmet coffee truck, and one of the events that we were working at was this outdoor concert series called the California Philharmonic, and that's where we met Andre. Andre was the producer of the event. His father was the conductor. They ran the orchestra, and so we had our truck at those summer concert series like 6 times in the summer, and we became good buddies with Andre during that time. We kind of went our different ways when we started, focusing more on our powder coating business and then opening the restaurant. Right around the same time when we opened that first restaurant, we ran into Andre in Pasadena, and he was about to open his first restaurant, which was just an unbelievable coincidence. Anybody who's ever opened a restaurant knows the challenges, and for the three of us to be kind of going through that at the exact same time, I think there was an immediate bond because of that, right? So then when we opened up our restaurants, which were literally like 3 months apart, we all kind of went through the same challenges and struggles and learned the things that we needed to learn back then. You know, I mean, Andre doesn't have a restaurant background. Quasim doesn't have a restaurant background. I definitely don't have a restaurant background. But that was our like restaurant, college. So right before Dog Haus, we were all running our respective restaurants.
So, Andre, you were directing the LA Philharmonic. How did you get into restaurants?
Well, it's the California Philharmonic was the name of it. I was getting my executive MBA at Drucker, and one of the last classes that I took, they said, hey, why don't you write a paper about the business that you're working with and how, you could help the business that you're working with. And I talked to the teachers, and I said, I'm kind of looking for a new direction or path in my career. Can I just kind of make up a concept? And I wanted to write a paper about something that I had like a little bit of passion for. I just got back from a trip in Chicago, and I decided, hey, I'm going to write about a restaurant and a jazz club and a wine bar and kind of mix it together and see what the class thinks about the presentation. Somehow the paper that I wrote was, everyone said, that's the coolest concept. You should do that. You should actually open that. That paper was written 5 months before I actually opened the restaurant, and 2 months after I opened the restaurant, I had my graduation party in that restaurant. So is this something, I've been with the Philharmonic for 10 years, working with the board of directors and wearing a suit every day, and I was kind of over it, and I originally wanted just to open up a wine bar with some cheese, and then when I got the permit from the city, they said, well, you have to be a full restaurant. You can't just serve booze. And then I said, it looks like I'm in the restaurant business. So it was a complete accident, and but I really enjoyed it, and that's how I started.
It's funny you say that. People ask me, how'd you guys get into the restaurant business? And the real answer is we wanted to get into the bar business. We were just too dumb, and we found ourselves in the restaurant business.
So what was that learning curve like for all of you? Not being restaurant guys.
Brutal.
How long did it, or is it still ongoing? Is the curve still going on for you guys?
Oh, absolutely ongoing. Yeah. But it was brutal. I mean, especially for Quasim and I, when we started, we had an idea of what, like Q said, we wanted to be in the bar business. We ended up in the restaurant business. We had no idea what we were going to do, but we tried to come up with an idea, and then that idea quickly changed every second that restaurant was open, until when we look back on the very, at the height of that one restaurant's existence, we went from small plates Mediterranean lounge to full-on nightclub with 8 security guards and DJs and you name it.
And we were pretty successful nightclub.
Successful at that, yeah.
I mean, we were packing way too many people into the place. The city came down on us and said, you're running a de facto nightclub. And as much as we wanted to say, no, we're not, we were.
And I think the other thing both of us shared in common at that time was everybody was an expert. We hired consultants to say, hey, help us on the menu. We hired, we listened to staff members. We listened to the bartenders. Here, hey, you guys are new at the restaurant business. You've only been doing it for a year or two.
This is how
you do it. You say, okay.
This would be good.
You start listening to them, and you start changing your concept every single day. One day you're this, next day you're that, and it's constantly you're trusting other people, and you're kind of listening, and then you realize, fast forward 7 years later, you know what you're doing. Stop listening to people. And I think when we started Dog Haus, the first thing we did is we came up with a plan, and we stuck to it, and we haven't gone off that, the plan, and we just trusted in ourselves.
So you go from nightclub,
Jazz club.
Nightclub, white
club.
Tablecloth, jazz club.
What is the evolution of that to fast casual hot dog, sausage, and burger concept?
So I had this idea at that time. So it was 08, 09 when the economy crashed, and I had a place that was serving a couple $100 bottles of wines with tomahawk steaks, and I was realizing, okay, how come people aren't coming in here too often? Now they're only coming for their special anniversary or birthday, and I saw that happening, and I thought, I want to open up this is right when the food trucks were really taking off. I'm going to open up a wiener wagon, it was called, a hot dog on wheels, and it would be the coolest thing. And so I said, okay, I know Hagop and Q. They ran a food truck. I'm going to get some advice from them. So I met with Hagop and Q, and I said, guys, can you tell me how to do a food truck? How does it work? What's the deal? What do you want to do? And I said, I want to open up wiener wagon, hot dog concept, because I think the hot dogs are there's a niche for that, and what do you guys think about that? And I think they both looked at each other and they said, well, that's kind of funny timing because we signed a lease here in Pasadena for a brick and mortar location for a hot dog concept. Do you want to join?
So that was, you guys were going that direction too. How did you simultaneously all come to this conclusion that like hot dogs would be the next thing?
Well, I mean, hot dog. We were actually, funny enough, we were sitting in our restaurant, and we're the nightclub, I should call it, and we're in the patio, and the place is packed, and we've got a kitchen there, and we're sitting in the patio, and it's late night, and Hog goes, you know what really pisses me off is that every one of these people, everybody in here is going to go somewhere and grab a bite to eat. You remember how we used to go out to the clubs and we'd eat those hot dogs out of those shopping carts, the downtown dirty dogs, and we were like, he said, why don't we do what we talked about back then? Why don't we do a hot dog concept again?
By back then is Quasim, since I've known him in college, would always be like, let's open up a hot dog place. Let's open up a hot dog place. And I never actually understood it. He'd always say it. He's like, oh, man, we could, nobody does a hot dog right. The only place you could go get a good hot dog is Costco. And he literally talked about it. He came up with random names, like one was What Up Dog. And it was always kind of funny and as a joke. And then that night when we're sitting there and we're talking about it, we're like, well, what if we did do it, right? What if it wasn't a joke? What if we gave it a shot? We had no idea. We had no real plan, but we thought if we did something that was smaller and more controllable. The funniest part of the entire story, in my opinion, is that we went from wanting to own a bar to trying to own a restaurant. It turned into a nightclub, and then we chose to own only a food restaurant. Yeah, because we ended up falling in love with it, to be honest. And so then we woke up the next morning. It wasn't just something that we said that we didn't follow through. We started following through. We signed our first lease, run into Andre. Andre's going to open up the Wiener Wagon. We're like, this is just too random, right? This is the second time in our careers now where we're doing something at the same time. Let's do it together.
And mind you, even in the first restaurants, Andre's restaurant was a couple hundred yards from ours.
Oh, wow.
So it's not only in the same town. I mean, you could drive a golf ball from one to the other.
So then the lease you had signed, that became the first Dog Haus.
It's the original Dog Haus, yeah.
We opened that October
20th,
2010.
What was the process like of developing the concept that is Dog Haus? The final menu, the branding, what did all that look like?
I wish it sounds more professional, but it was a lot of like the three of us hanging out, drinking, coming up with ideas that we thought were fun. Our commitment was at that point that we were going to trust ourselves, we were going to trust our instincts, we were going to trust what we had learned, and we were going to put together a concept that we felt was good for people. Like, the things that we were doing before weren't even things that even though our, let's say the restaurant turned into a nightclub, Quasim didn't even go to nightclubs, and Andre did have a passion in jazz, but even the restaurant that he owned, it didn't turn into the restaurant that he wanted to be in. So we set forth to do something that was for us, not just for us, but something that was through our our DNA. And so we just literally sat down and we threw out ideas, and we created menus, and we came up with the way the restaurant looked. We had, obviously got an architect, and we did a lot of the work ourselves. We got a contractor. And funny enough is like right when that started, without sitting down and writing down people's roles, Quasim immediately, started being the construction guy and the design guy. And Andre already started working on the brand development and marketing, and I goofed around with the menu and stuff. So we all automatically kind of fell into roles without even thinking about it. And today if you look back on day one of Dog Haus and you look at that menu and you look at the space, what has happened to Dog Haus from then to today is we've grown. Maybe we're more polished, but we haven't changed, which is kind of really cool, and same with us in the roles in our business. And
one other thing, when we started Dog Haus, one thing that we definitely wanted to be a restaurant, right? So we didn't go in saying, hey, we want to be a fast food spot, because one of the things that we realized was that if you looked at the better burger segment, there's tons of them. You don't have enough fingers on your hand to count them. But find a good hot dog, let alone name hot dog places, and you run out after 4, right? So there was a void in that marketplace. So we decided when we're going to do this, when we're going to do Dog Haus, the quality was very important to us. So it wasn't like, hey, let's whip up something And actually, at the grand opening, the first day, Hago went to culinary school, and
day before.
it was already it was the day before.
19th, yeah.
And I think just the way we
I
are.
left you guys while you were cutting holes into my my
Your
IKEA bar that turned into our condiment station.
What's
right.
funny is I just went camping for the first time in 10 years, and I took one of those collapsible benches.
Yeah.
And I opened it up, I'm like, why is this thing full of, oh, it was the Dog Haus fry station.
I bet it smelled great.
Oh, yeah.
The other thing we started at that time, we had multiple restaurants, so we had chefs ourselves on salary from our other businesses. So we started off with working with pretty talented chefs to help us create the menu that Hago is overseeing, but Q and myself were involved in the menu as well and made sure we tasted everything, and we had to make sure all three of our palates is something that the item came out to be perfect. And so today, fast forward 7 years later, we still work with multiple top chefs, and Hago's overseeing them, and I think that's something that started from day one, to, making sure that we keep an eye on the quality of the food and how great can we make it. And
Yeah, you guys have done a really incredible job of, there are so many really renowned chefs that you guys have worked with now in the last couple of years. Why have you staked your claim in this sort of culinary side of things? Why has that become so important to you and to Dog Haus's success?
Oh, I think that's more like that's something that we're obsessed with. Like that's more like what do you say when you see a celebrity? You get what?
Fanboy?
No, yeah, fanboy or whatever. I'm obsessed with the food side of things, and I think that's just something that's fun and exciting to be able to work with people like that. I think it also is a cool differentiator to be able to say, hey, one of the most, I think, important things that people overlook in brands that succeed over multiple locations. You could look from the top down, from McDonald's and Subway all the way down to guys that are as small as us, but we feed a lot of people, right? Like we feed, maybe yesterday we fed thousands of people, and celebrity chefs or top chefs and all, they love to feed people too, but in their restaurants, whether you have one restaurant, you don't get to feed as many people. And I remember when I talked to Elon once, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. We just made 2,000 pounds of something. And I'm like, do you realize how many people are going to be able to eat this? Like something you created, something that you made, and now it's going to go out and you're going to get like thousands of people eating it. So I think not only is it exciting for us to be able to work with chefs, but I think they get the opportunity to, put their stamp on something and get out in front of a lot of people, whereas one restaurant doesn't give you that same access.
Hey, so you mentioned Elon. So Elon is your head chef now. Your
Elon
culinary wingman.
Yeah.
But your head chef.
Moving on.
Yeah. So no, he is one of the chefs that we're working with that's helping create menu ideas. And you have Adam Gertler, who's our Wurstmacher. He's helping. He creates all of our dogs and sausages. So together, there's the hot dog sausage creation, which takes so much time and effort because the ingredients in it are unique and different, and you could really be chef driven just in that realm. But then we also do things with toppings and try to be creative in that aspect of it. Everything that we do at Dog Haus is proprietary, right? So everything from the grind of our beef to the formulation of our hot dogs to every single sausage we put out and every sauce that we use, all those things are created for us. Recipes created by chefs and made for us only for Dog Haus.
So, because Elon, what's so fascinating, this guy won Top Chef.
Won Top Chef.
He is an incredible chef.
He's an awesome chef.
And what I think this reflects, right, is that chefs are also interested in this. It's reciprocal that chefs appreciate this opportunity to feed thousands of people every day, because that means that they're getting their craft out there to a mass audience.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a cool opportunity to be able to do different things. As we look back, and Andre was talking about food trucks, but you have guys like Roy Choi that created Kogi and changed the landscape of restaurants in general. And then Danny Myers goes out and opens up Shake Shack, and now you have all these people that are changing the direction of where food goes. And so I think there's I think if you look at food, and even guys like Anthony Bourdain, where they started creating the appeal of making food with not cheaper ingredients by poor, but like the different types of cuts, and being able to put out really high quality food that doesn't cost as expensive to eat. So now it's open canvas, right? Anybody can eat what you want, because we're putting out a hot dog that costs $5.99, created by Top Chef season 2 winner. I mean, that's pretty amazing. And then Adam's on Food Network Next Star, pretty successful in his own right and what he does, and he can make a hot dog or a sausage that tastes better than anybody, in my opinion. And then it goes out and it gets eaten by thousands and thousands of people, and that costs a few bucks. Whereas if you want to eat what that real that chef quality caliber of running his own restaurant, that meal is what, $50, $60. I just had dinner another night. It was $125 a person. You can't do that. I mean, so I think it's a pretty cool partnership where real successful chefs are working with brands like us.
The other cool thing that helped also is, we partnered with No Kid Hungry, and chefs, they support that. So when we decided to do a chef collaboration series where every other month there'll be a different chef that comes in, we thought it would be difficult to get people to be a part of it, but they wanted to do it. It's the fact that, going back to what Hagop said earlier, that they could feed a lot of people, but then also that something that they create can actually help and raise money. Yeah. That was a pretty cool thing that went from idea to fruition. I mean, I think the marketing team pulled that off in a matter of, how many months? 2 months, 2 or 3 months?
Couple months. And then we do the best we can with the marketing. We have a pretty awesome marketing team, social media team, PR company, and the chefs. When you're Top Chef and you have one restaurant or two, you just don't have that power behind you. And so then all of a sudden we're working with the media and social media and whatnot, and we just do our best to get their name out to the public, and it really helps them as well.
Yeah. So when you guys really started at the dawn of a period that we have started to call fast casual 2.0. What we're looking at in the last decade is this evolution of fast casual from really customization forward to what Chipotle was doing, moving into very much more high quality than what existed before. So obviously you have it there on the menu, but what were the other ways that you guys were looking to make this more of an upscale experience for fast casual?
One of the ways was the design of it. Like when you go to most fast food restaurants, you go in there and the design is an afterthought. It's a matter of, let's pick red and yellow, throw it on the wall, the cheapest tile you can, and some uncomfortable seats, and you're done. So we looked at this and said, actually, it's funny. It was actually more out of necessity, because we opened our first restaurant and we didn't have a ton of money, but we did have that powder coating shop. Huh. And we were doing metal fabrication as well. So we did look through some catalogs, but it was more of the same. So we thought, why not design our own furniture? So we got to build our own furniture, design it, powder coat it. Didn't know much about staining wood, but learned really quickly. So we designed our own space, and we had a certain look and feel we wanted to go with, and we were able to pull it off. Now, fast forward to the point where we're about to franchise, that's when we decided to turn it up a notch. So everything from the furniture, we started using laser cut metal instead of something that's just sheared. We started using brakes. We went with a lot of hot rolled metal, so it's more natural and raw looking than a powder coated finish, but we still were able to give the guest an experience, an elevated experience in the design as well. Because you go to a nice restaurant, it's not just the food that's being served, it's the entire package.
So it's an experience in general. Yeah.
And then we have we make sure the TVs aren't just playing Sports Center on repeat all day. We have Dog Haus TV to get the customers engaged. We then we curate our playlist to make sure it's the music that's a cool vibe for people to come in there and have a good time. And then we have a great selection of 24 craft beers on tap, and give that customer service that people want when they come in. So I think it's not just fast food. It's you're going in there and you're hanging out, having an experience, bringing some friends in there, having a few beers, and eating the amazing food we put out.
Do you guys ever have a moment when you thought maybe we should have table service? Was that ever a consideration at all?
every day.
Yeah,
we
all
talk
the
about it
time.
every day.
Really?
Yeah.
So what was the deciding factor?
Well, originally it was we wanted to create something that was small and controllable. So our original location is 1,400 square feet. You know, our first employee, Abe, he's actually one of my friends from when I've known him since I was 3, but it was, you know, we put him at the register and he was the general manager of the store, and he could actually look and see and touch just about every single thing in that restaurant. And if we were doing table service, that wouldn't have worked. So now every customer was literally that ordered from that Dog Haus walked up, talked to him, and then sat down, and then we delivered the food to the table. So we felt we were giving better service and controlling it more by doing it that way. We had no clue what fast casual meant when we opened up our restaurant, right? Like it was literally the 3 of us coming up with what we wanted out of a place, and then I guess we ended up in a category that, you know, unbeknownst to ourselves. So that was the idea. But, you know, as we grown, and now we're over 30 restaurants, and we open up, you know, real estate opportunities are different. And, you know, as Q looks out and looks at different, you know, spaces and sizes and stuff, sometimes we've ended up in rather large restaurants, and we've kicked around the idea of full table service. Plus, unlike California, labor is different throughout the country, right? So you have, you know, tip credits and whatnot. So I have a franchisee that literally asked me yesterday if he could do table service, and he wants to have a legitimate phone call and conversation about it next week, which we are, you know, we believe in our franchisees as partners, and we're going to sit down and listen to them. And so we don't know where the future of Dog Haus is, but as of today, that's who we are.
You know, and one of the things that makes us really want to consider it as well is, let's just say the place is slammed and there's a line and somebody wants that second beer, another hot dog, an extra order of tots. It might dissuade them to have to stand in line and do it again, whereas if somebody would just ask them, would you like something else, maybe it could help increase sales. So there's that side of it as well that makes us open to it.
So Quasim, you said something interesting, which is when you decided to franchise, you decided to kick it up a notch. That seems sort of counter to what's probably normal, that most businesses, when they franchise, actually want to simplify things. So what was that process like for when you guys did decide to franchise, to put this into a package that would be good for franchisees? I mean, obviously maintaining that quality, but kicking it up a notch even. Why was that decision that you guys wanted to go with?
Well, you know, when you deal with your own money, you can be a little more relaxed with it. You can say, you know what, we can cut a corner here and there. But when when somebody's investing in you, the pressure with other people's money is greater than with our own. And at that point, we decided that, you know, when we decided we wanted to franchise, it took us about a year and a half.
About a year,
to get everything in order. And in that time, we said, all right, let's look at everything that we're doing and see where we can do it better. Whether it was from on the operations end, whether it was, you know, Andre honing in the local area marketing, whatever it was, we said, now's our opportunity while we're gathering all this other stuff to really get on point.
So then the franchisee process, I mean, did you have very much in your head what kind of franchisee you wanted? I mean, who was your first franchisee, I guess I should say, and, you know, why did you choose that person, and then how did that really kind of reflect the direction you guys were going to go for your franchise? When
we first started, actually, when we decided to franchise, we just put, you know, we had 3 locations. We had the original 1,400 square foot location on Hill. Our second location was a little larger, but it was a full bar, so it was the beer garden. And our third location was larger, but with no bar, just beer and wine.
And our first location had no beer.
Had nothing. So we have one location that is just food, another one that's food, beer, wine, and booze. Third location, just beer and food. So we decided that we're gonna, you know, advertise to our guests. We thought we'll give the fans of Dog Haus the first crack at being a part of it. So we put a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper that said, you know, franchise interest. Had Hagop's cell phone number on it. He was dealing with the franchise.
That was smart.
Such a bad idea.
He lost on that one. And then we put that at the first and third location. We did not do it at the second location because there's a lot more involved in operating a bar. And initially, the response was ridiculous. I mean, we sold out the greater LA area like that. So it was the first one is geared more towards the fans. As we've gone on, we're looking at this, and even though we love our early franchisees, our new direction is more savvy operators and somebody that wants to develop a territory. Because one of the things, although it was great the way we did it, we didn't realize the distribution challenges, for example, that could get set up when you're opening one store, in San Diego. Well, that's a kind of a challenge. Now, if that same operator would have opened 4 or 5 stores, it would have been better for them, better for us. So that's the new direction.
And at the same time, when you're 3 guys and you just open up 3 hot dog restaurants and you have no experience in franchising, you're not going to get that multi-unit operator to take 20 units in a different state.
Right.
So I think it came naturally the way we did it. It was our fans first. That was the first round. And then once we're established and we've been franchising for a few years, then we were able to say, okay, now we kind of know what we're going to do. So let's go after the multi-unit operators in different states. And back in the day, even when we didn't quite know what we were doing, we've always said we made it up with effort and passion behind the brand. And so we give them everything that we had, and that's what Q was talking about, taking it up a notch. It wasn't necessarily spending more money on the construction. It's just how much can we give those franchisees? And we had family members. All of us have had a family member franchise. And so we needed to make sure, we had to, step up our game, and we don't want to have another dinner during the holiday time and be looking at that, looking at our franchisee and having any issues. So I think we did a good job.
So a lot of the fast casual 2.0 world, there's actually been some resistance to franchise. And a lot of people talk about it in the sort of this idea of keeping control over your experience and your brand, and that once you go into franchising, you're sort of giving up some of that control, and they don't want to do that. Was that ever a consideration? I mean,
Absolutely.
How did you guys cross that into being okay with being the franchise?
Well, that was something we talked about every day when we were talking about it. I think it was Hagop who one day, had this epiphany of what is the most consistent thing on the planet, and it's McDonald's.
It's franchises.
They're franchised. That was always our fear. Was are the controls, is the quality going to go down? Is all the things that made Dog Haus what it is that going to be upheld? And then, when Hagop said that, you kind of scratch your head and go, I guess if you're good at it, it can. So then we decided to remove that roadblock.
Yeah, I mean, I think inconsistency is either you're a franchise brand or you're a restaurant owned or you're company owned, and you can be inconsistent on either side. And like Q was just saying, look at Starbucks, look at Subway, look at McDonald's, and say what you want about anybody, but you go anywhere and they're the same. So it's really up to us to create the right systems. And that's the challenging part because we've never done this before. But creating the systems and enforcing the systems and picking really good franchise partners and holding ourselves accountable as well. And all those things are a part of it. And we feel like we're poised to do really good at it because the reason of, kick it up a notch when we become a franchise and even with, family members is we work harder for others than we do for ourselves. We could easily, I think Quasim said earlier, is we could, when it's your own money, you could be more careless, you could be more, more of anything. But when it's somebody else's money and you really, really care about that person, you want to take it seriously and you want them to be, as successful as possible. And you asked about our first franchisee. It was a pretty cool story for us. It was a young lady. She was a barber before. She had one chair, and now she owns one of our most successful stores, even though she only has one. But I think she makes a substantially better living than she did before. She had never run a restaurant before. She had never worked in a restaurant before. She didn't have even managerial experience before because she was her own single barber. But we felt like she fit our culture, and she was a big fan of the brand, and it worked out.
She crushes it.
Yeah, it worked out. So, I mean, there's a lot of cool parts of it, and I think that I think that's the most interesting is we all wanted to be in the restaurant or the bar business. Andre wanted to be, do wine and jazz. And then we ended up opening up Dog Haus, which was a restaurant. And then we decided to franchise it. And the truth is we're now not really that much into the restaurant business anymore. We're in a completely different business. And, Quasim's, working on construction and real estate and checking out, the population density of blah, blah, blah. And Andre's trying to, market to, a specific segment. And
negotiating contracts with Holo.
Negotiating contracts with these massive companies. And I'm trying to get food from California to Bethesda, Maryland. And we're like, that's not what we signed up for. But it's been fun. And it's an exciting part of the growth of our business. Very different than what we originally set out to do.
Yeah, you mentioned systems. I mean, scaling up, that's a whole other ball game aside from opening a restaurant. So walk me through the scaling up process and how you build a system that can sustain franchisees all over the country.
I wish I could ask you
Learn
that question so
you
you could tell me. Yeah, no. I think we're learning. I think technology is going to be a big part of our growth. That's going to help us do the things that we set out to do. Even in our, like, let's say on the food side, like the operational side, one of the main things that we did is we used to go from making things in store, and now we're getting things made for us. And although you could look at it and go, oh my God, before they used to make it in the store, that's got to be better. And the truth is, well, Elon Hall can't work in a store and Adam Gertler can't work in every store, right? So now we have extremely great quality chefs creating ingredients for everybody to go out, and then we got to set up the system to distribute it to everybody, and those are things that we're working on. And same goes for everything, whether it's marketing or construction or design and things like that. There's a system that has to be created behind it for us to be able to do it everywhere at any given time, and we're every day, if you look backwards it's fun. Sometimes we look back. I mean, today is a pretty good example because yesterday, literally, we launched our loyalty app, right? Andre worked on it for 2 years. And now today he can look back and it's done. And any time before that, you look back and it didn't exist. And you're like, wow, that's like a major growth day for Dog Haus. And we go through those things a lot. Like, I can't believe. I had this conversation with Quasim yesterday. I think if out of the three of us, Quasim's he's the hardest on us, right? Where he's like, man, we could have been better at that, or we could have buttoned this up a little bit. And it's important because it keeps us always like striving to be better. But I'm like, dude, look at brand. Like, we're always stuck at looking at, because we've already mentioned them a couple times, like McDonald's and Starbucks. But we're looking at 20,000, 30,000 unit brands that have been around. I mean, even Sam, before we started talking about like these brands have been around for 50, 60 years. But I will challenge us to look at brands that are significantly smaller and try to compare ourselves to them and go, wow, look at the design of that restaurant. Like, we did it yesterday. I'm like, we should be proud of us. Like, Q was like, man, I really should have, done that entry door of that one restaurant differently. And I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, we look so good, in my opinion, that I feel like we're light years ahead of us on certain things. And certain things I obviously think that we can improve, and, like distribution is challenging. But in certain parts of this business, I'm like, wow, I don't think we're as young as we really are. And I think that's pretty cool.
I think getting ready for, with the growth of our company, I think we've been growing appropriately. It's been a key thing. I've seen a lot of brands where they just overstaff or understaff because they want to make some money. And I think we've done the right approach, which is get the right staff that it takes. Don't look at what the franchise income is. Don't look at that. Let's just get the appropriate staff for today. We have meetings twice a year where we look and we have an org chart and we say, what's our wish list? We want to get this person. We want to get that person. And we
fire everybody in the restaurant.
And the way we started originally, because of probably our past experience with all these consultants and people telling us what to do in the past. And we feel like, hey, we had between us 25 years of restaurant experience. Combine that, we knew how to do this next step. We've had some amazing mentors that have been there in our corner helping us out. But we started off by getting great people in the right departments, but not in the restaurant industry. So we had an operations guy who was dealing with operations and systems out in the Middle East, dealing with oil rigs and whatnot. But hey, he knows operations, he knows systems. Let's bring him to our team. Happens to be a great friend of mine. Like, as you heard earlier, Hagop brought Abe, his buddy, and he ran our first 3 stores. And then he said, let me I used to do construction, let me jump in that department. So we kind of, maybe our first 15 employees were only family or referral of a friend that somebody knows each other. And I think
we didn't place any
I think we
ads.
placed an ad for our social media person, was the first person that was not a family member or friend that worked for Dog Haus. So we started to make sure that we had like the family and the culture set up first. And now as we're making this turn right now, we're going, okay, now we need the C-suite. Now it's time to bring in the people who have worked in this industry and could take us to the next level. But we wanted to set who we were first before we get some new consultant to come in who's run tons of X brand out there and come tell us how to run a franchise company. And so I think, like I said, we were lucky to have great mentors in our corner and friends in the business to give us the advice we needed. And then just now we're ready for the next level.
I think the pace of growth idea is really interesting to me because, the history of the QSR and fast casual space is really littered with brands who said, we're going to be 500 locations in 5 years. And, they never got there. So it's easy, I think, for some operators to get kind of stars in their eyes and think like we could be the next big thing. But then they get kind of in over their heads. So for you guys, you're at over 30 locations now after 8 years. What does that pace of growth look like, sort of in reflection, and how it's gone to this point? And then where does it go from here, and what's the comfort spot, I guess, you're finding?
Well, I mean, we started franchising. Our first store was in 2014, so it's really 4 years that we've been franchising. The first year, we had to figure out how to franchise. I think our growth, if we would have said from day one how we were going to franchise, we've opened up way more stores than we thought. However, if you look back at maybe 2 years ago, when we're 2 years into it, we might be a little bit less than we hope to be, right? However, now, so we've been doing, 6 stores 1 year, 10 stores next year, 13 stores. I think this next year, because we already have all these leases signed and land bought, and, we've got a good 25, 30 coming around the corner. So I think that this next year is going to be a big year for us. But, I could see a lot of franchisees who, when they first start out and say, hey, I'm going to have 500, because that's what, people buy stores and they're ready to buy, open. But until you've done franchising for 10 years, let's say, you then start realizing, okay, that person's said they're going to open 10 and they really opened 1, or maybe we picked the wrong person at the beginning, or maybe the real estate was off. So I think we took the appropriate step. I don't even say step back, because we've continued to grow more each year, but we've really made sure we had the right operator and that the real estate's the right thing, and that we could distribute in that area, and to make sure we have everything set up. So I think the three of us are excited about what the next 12 months is going to be and what the next 24 months is going to be.
Let's talk about mistakes that you've made. You were talking earlier, Hagop,
How much time do we have?
It's a whole new podcast.
Yeah, that's right. You guys can be selective when you tell me. But Quasim, you were, talking about being kind of hard on yourselves. Obviously, it's good for you to identify mistakes that you've made. What are some of the biggest ones? How did you guys process them and get past them?
Ooh, good question. Let's see. Early on, I'm going to talk about in my department, right? So I think that one of the earlier mistakes we made was we had a different architect, and we hadn't aligned ourselves with the right team on that end. The culinary side had done that from day one. They always align themselves with the best of the best. I think Andre's team did a great job with that. They found the best PR company, the PR company that launched Starbucks to the East Coast. I mean, they were dealing with the best, and I dealt with an architect that had an office that looked like it was in a closet
Above a tire shop.
And I remember one day sitting there going over plans with him and going, "This can't be right. Like this, there's got to be better." And actually, this was something that we learned from a franchisee. A franchisee said, "I've got this architect." Turns out he's the architect for Panda Express, for Jersey Mike's. He's the guy. And, we brought him on board, and everything has been so much smoother. So, I look back at some of the first 4 or 5 stores, and I want to go back and punch myself in the face. And I'm sure the franchisees wanted to punch me in the face too.
Only one did. I'd say, like Quasim was saying, in my department, I was lucky that I surrounded myself from the beginning with some amazing staff members and people in the department. I'd say however, one of the weaknesses that we did was making a decision and moving fast enough with, we're launching an app today. We didn't launch an app 3 years ago. We launched an app today. We were dealing with things a little bit late because we were always afraid on technology is changing so quick. So all of a sudden we talked to somebody, we're like, okay, let's design an app. Because, the ones that are prefabbed aren't really good for you. So we start working on customizing an app just for us. And then you realize when you speak to some of the bigger people who've had apps that have been custom for them, they're jumping back the other way now because that one company can't keep up with, let's say, a Level Up that has 500 brands saying, I need this new thing. I need it to do this now. Right. You have 500 major companies helping them say, here you go. So I think part of our problem with technology, because it moves so fast, it's like, do we put our money behind Instagram or Facebook? Do we do this or do that? I mean, it was so many different things are going on that sometimes I wish we would have just said, hey, let's do delivery and let's get an app. Let's make our educated guess today and move forward with it in 6 months and launch it. But we kept hearing right when we were starting to do something, oh, wait, there's something even bigger and better in technology 3 months later.
Right, you keep waiting for
and then
perfect
you're like,
and nothing gets done.
Maybe we should go on that one. And so I think if I had to do it again, I would have just done an app, done the delivery right from the beginning when we knew that's the trend and what's going on, versus try to get the perfect one and look back, 2 years later.
I think that's really interesting too. Are you losing your ability to change as you grow?
It's definitely getting harder.
It's harder.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
They say the big cruise ship doesn't turn as fast as a small dinghy. That's one of the things that we're kind of keeping ourselves honest with is we want to be able to be quick and nimble, but at the same time, the decisions we make carry more weight now. And and we were talking about this earlier, how McDonald's is restructuring in order to be more nimble. So we want to make the moves of a big business with the speed and efficiency of a small business.
I think we're trying to find that balance and be leaning more towards the speed.
When we first opened, we were able to walk in the morning. So I want to test out a new item. We
write it on chalkboard.
Write it down, write it on a chalkboard, and run it as an LTO. We can't be that nimble, but this year we're gonna do 6 LTOs. None of them were planned before the year. First one was planned a couple weeks before the year started. So that's been pretty cool. That's forcing us to do things. Otherwise, I had the idea of doing a fried chicken sandwich like 7 years ago, and it took 4 years to get on the menu. So you don't set dates, and you don't just like the app thing that Dre was talking about. If you don't set dates and push yourself, it's hard.
So looking into the future, what kind of experience do you guys hope to be able to create for your customers, and how far do you want to take this? I mean, what do you envision for what Dog Haus can become to the American diner?
Oh God, I mean, step one one of our big goal is to have Dog Haus be a household name. I mean, that is something that I know it drives all of us. We've created something and we believe in it. Like so much so, like the food, for example. All of our beef is hormone-free, antibiotic-free, genetically tested, certified, humanely raised Black Angus beef. That same quality goes into our hot dogs, and we stand behind it. There's a new generation. Our wives control what our children eat. Mm-hmm. And my wife will not let the kids eat a burger from just about anywhere but Dog Haus. And, that's important to us. So, our ultimate goal is that anybody in the country knows Dog Haus and can feel good about feeding their family there.
Yes, I mean, I think that was the food is a big part, but really the experience. Like you come in and you feel familiar because you've been there before and it's a comfortable place. I think what's cool is that we're at like year 8, and so sometimes there's people that were guests of ours when they were kids and now they've graduated college. One of our employees, his son was in high school when we opened, and then he went to UCLA, won 2 national titles in water polo. He's traveling the world through Europe, and he's, where's his dog? We look on Instagram, and he's playing for the U.S. national team. Hopefully he's going to be in the Olympics, and he's wearing a Dog Haus t-shirt. And this guy's memories of Dog Haus are from, when he was like freshman in high school. Yeah. I think that's really cool. We did one of my favorite stories that when we first opened Dog Haus, we got asked to do a catering job for a high school graduation party for a local high school, and Quasim and I said yes, and we did it. So we went and we purchased a bunch of brand new equipment. We're like, we're gonna do this thing right? We're gonna look professional. This is one of those things where Q was pushing us to be professional. So we literally went out and we bought brand new equipment, a new flat top, a new fryer, like all these things. And we're so stupid. We show up, an hour and a half before the catering is supposed to start.
This is at somebody's house. This is a backyard party.
We have no clue that the equipment that we've bought, you can't just hook up a propane tank to. So literally, we're taking stickers off the stuff, we're unloading it out of our truck, and we can't use any of it. And there's 150 kids that we're supposed to feed in an hour. So Quasim goes and gets his camping burner, the one that he was probably talking about earlier, and then we get a wok. And then I asked the owner of the house if we can do use their barbecue. And we literally cooked for 150 kids like that, and it was an epic disaster.
At one point, I dumped fries into the wok, and it boiled over on some kid's foot. He's wearing flip-flops. Thank God he had just gotten out of the pool. And
he apologized to us.
He's apologized. Oh, sorry, man, I shouldn't have been there. I mean, these kids were the nicest
Luckily, they're the
people
nicest kids in the world.
Yeah.
Me as a high school kid would have punched me in the face. But it was amazing. And those kids are that was 8 years ago. They're graduating high school. I don't know. They've now graduated college. Maybe they've gotten their, furthered their education, or they're married. Maybe they have children. Maybe they're living in other parts of the world. And they were kids when they experienced Dog Haus. I think that's a really cool thing. We're gonna build hopefully like legacy of people that when they went to elementary school, they were turned on to Dog Haus and they loved it forever, or they, their first experience was in college or something, and then they talk about it as they go on. I think those are going to be really.
We got an email from somebody when we opened in Chicago saying, "I can't tell you how pumped I am. I moved to Chicago when I was going to college. I used to eat at Dog Haus all the time. I'm so excited."
Actually, Andre and I just went to Chicago Dog Haus, and we sat at the bar and we were having a drink. And the 2 guys next to me, I think we started up a basketball conversation. I know you're shocked by that.
As we do, yeah.
And one of them's like, "Oh yeah, well," I said, "Oh, is this the first time you came to Dog Haus?" He goes, "It's my first time here, but I actually grew up in Glendale, which is the city over from Pasadena. So I used to go to the original." And I was like, "Get out of here, dude!" I'm like, "Well, Andre and I are 2 of the partners. We founded it." He's like, "Get out of here! Your nephew is my best friend."
Oh my God.
I was like, wow. We're in Chicago.
Uniting the world through hot dogs.
Yeah, we're
That's
in Chicago. So those are really cool experiences for us. I think Quasim once was like, so Quasim lives like 45 miles from here, and this is like year, we're in the first year or something like that, and he was everybody that we know now, when you cook at home, you buy King's Hawaiian, and so when you're making dogs for your backyard party, whatever. So Q is literally making hot dogs at home using King's Hawaiian bread and hot dogs, and it looks exactly like a Dog Haus. And then I think he invites his neighbor over, right?
Yep.
And your neighbor sees it, and he's like, "Oh my God, this is from Dog Haus?" And like, this guy lives 45 miles away. Like, those are really cool things. So when we say we want Dog Haus to be a household name, and that would be a household name where you've created some form of memory. I mean, hot dogs and hamburgers are as old as this country is, right? And that's such a cool. We didn't try to introduce Pakistani food or German food, what kind of, and then or Armenian food. We did something that is old as time, that we all have some form of like
and talk about the
tradition.
Ultimate comfort.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't think of.
Everybody has a story. My mom made me hot dogs like this, or in the toaster, or both.
It usually comes with good times. It's not like chicken noodle soup when you're feeling like crap.
Right. I only eat it when I'm sick. Let's start a business based on that.
Well, guys, I can't wait to see what's next. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us,
It was
Sam.
a lot of fun.
All right, there you have it, my conversation with the 3 founders and partners behind Dog Haus. Obviously, they have just a lot of exciting things going on, and I really just can't wait to see where this brand goes into the future. You can subscribe to this podcast on all of the platforms where you do listen to your podcast: iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher. We are on all of those. If you liked this podcast, if you like what you're hearing from Fast Forward, please do go to iTunes and leave a review. We'd also just love to hear your feedback. You can feel free to email me at sam@qsrmagazine.com. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you have an idea for some folks you think that we should have conversations with for Fast Forward. I would just love to hear that feedback. Really excited to share this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.